Are you the quantum mechanics?
The paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between.
It's, so very busy week, but I have managed to put an episode together. Now, Ben, I've been sitting with this episode for a while for a number of reasons. Partly, I wasn't quite sure what the angle was going to be or how I wanted to put it together. I had a rough idea, but it wasn't really gelling. Also because it's connected with Ed and Lorraine Warren and the Conjuring Universe and the Conjuring House visitor attraction. These are big topics, and generally we try and avoid those massive stories because they're covered to death. But
yeah,
I think I found an angle that I wanted to explore regarding it.
Yes. And also, these things, sometimes they are legally challenging to sort of get into the details of sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, at the time I started putting this together, everyone was talking about the Conjuring visitor attraction and what was going on there. And I guess it's worth this coming up again because of the recent death of Dan Rivera and his connection to the Annabelle doll. And that's made me really think about, actually, I do want to cover this now.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, Dan Rivera was taking the Annabelle doll on a tour on behalf of the museum, the Ed and Lorraine Warren Museum, right?
Yeah, he was on tour. I'm going to go into that a little bit. I was struck by the themes associated with what has become known, at least commercially, as the Conjuring Universe. It's become a name, like the Marvel Universe in a way.
Right, yeah.
So we got the books, the movies, the visitor attractions. Certainly in paranormal terms, it's had mainstream impact. I mean, it's full of paranormal activity, but also media attention and, of course, financial success.
Yeah.
Now, we often talk about objects being cursed, and I guess Annabelle the doll is right up there in that regard, probably the most famous at least.
Yeah.
But I wondered if the money and fame of the Conjuring Universe has also brought its own horrors. And that's what I want to focus on today. The cash, the business.
Right, okay, that's interesting. Because as well as the things that happen in the material world when you attract cash and then all of the problems that come with that, there is also a thought that you're attracting perhaps sometimes malicious attention from other realms.
Yeah.
When you start having emotions like greed and avarice, all of those things might affect that.
Absolutely. Let's start with Dan Rivera. He's a psychic investigator. So as Ben was saying, he sadly passed away recently, and his death has been connected to Annabelle the doll. I think this piece written by Forrest McFarlane in July for the Sun newspaper sums up the story well. The headline, Paranormal Tragedy, Annabelle doll handler Dan Rivera dies suddenly at 54 while touring with America's most infamous haunted object. McFarlane writes, a paranormal investigator has died while travelling across the US with the real, purportedly haunted doll that inspired the horror movie series Annabelle. Dan Rivera, 54, died of unknown causes while handling the doll known as America's most haunted object. He had stopped in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, during his Devil on the Run tour on Sunday evening, according to the Hanover Evening Sun. Emergency services got a request for help for a man matching Rivera's description being given CPR. His death was confirmed by the New England Society for Psychic Research, which was hosting the tour. Rivera's official cause of death hasn't been released. The investigator has been remembered as a beloved friend who was passionate about educating others on paranormal activity. All three of his shows scheduled for Gettysburg were sold out. We are heartbroken and still processing this loss, wrote the Society. I think that's the loss of Rivera rather than the loss of the shows, just to be sure. Dan truly believed in sharing his experience and educating people on the paranormal. We, as a family, so this is from the family, are in pieces as we share the news that Dan Rivera has passed away unexpectedly. That was from Sarah Bond Rivera. He was the centre of this family, a pillar of love and strength. As a devoted husband, father of 4 sons, and staunchly faithful friend, he's always had quiet source of resilience, strength, and endless hope. Daniel carried a light and a brave heart every day through his life and work. We are currently at a loss for words as we process his loss, but are extremely thankful for the love, support and respect during this unimaginable time. So sad. So many people affected by this.
Yeah.
Now, Rivera, who is a US Army veteran, or was working as the lead investigator for the Society when he died. His death came just months after he achieved viral fame on TikTok by posting about his paranormal tour and findings on the historic doll. The real Annabelle, a Raggedy Ann doll, has been blamed for several eerie paranormal attacks over the decades. There's more to this, but I'll give a quick background in case people have forgotten. I know it's pretty well trodden ground, but the toy was first given to a student nurse, Donna, in 1970 as a gift from her mother. Donna claimed that Annabelle would move from room to room without explanation and wrote eerie notes that said, "Help us." A friend of Donna's mother, named Lou, even claimed that one time when he was staying at their home, he woke up to a feeling of being strangled and had scratches on his body. Yes, this is really chilling. He remembers watching his horror as Annabelle stared at him during the attack, according to the Society. Donna's mum and a nurse called a medium who told the story of a girl named Annabelle Higgins who was found dead at the age of 7. They then called paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who inspired the Conjuring films, to look into the eerie claims. In a lecture given at Rutgers University in 1987, the Warrens claimed that Annabelle would slash people's skin with her psychic powers. They said that a priest threw the doll across the room once and said, "No doll or demon is stronger than God," before running his car into a tree.
Yeah. So I've actually seen them. There was a video which was aired on television just after he died, where they were moving the doll from its permanent home into a temporary sort of travel box, if you like.
Yeah.
And they do take it very seriously. Like there was a priest there giving prayers and blessings while it was being moved. They were covering themselves in holy water, and the doll wasn't allowed to touch bare skin. Now, you're probably going to come onto this, but I came away from watching that with mixed feelings of, if everything we know about the doll is real, then I understand why they do that. But it is also incredibly theatrical and makes for great filming material.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I saw a picture of Dan Rivera with the doll. And you're right about the not touching skin, because he's got these what look like kind of quite thick rubber gloves on.
Yes.
But he's holding it quite close to him. It almost looks like he's shaking it in the picture. So you're right, because how does that fit in with the theatrics of it has to be in a glass case and it has to be sealed in and locked, and you know what I mean? So,
well, they were moving it into a different glass case. It was just the one that it was in needed to be repaired. Yeah, they were transferring. They had to do it as quickly as possible. So they were very nervous about doing that. But that idea of, I understand it's a visitor attraction, so of course you would film it. But the fact that you've got a priest there, and some of the things that rang sort of not alarm bells, but you do question it, are things like the priest is dressed in full priest robes, and of course you go, well, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
But I think it's almost cinematic.
Yeah. Well, the doll was at the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut until 2019, when Lorraine died and the museum closed. They also, in the article, they talk about, we've heard this story before, the legend that a man was killed after he banged on its case despite being warned not to touch it. Rivera, who was mentored by the couple, by the Warrens, took ownership of Annabelle and hoped to continue their work with his research and tour. His sudden death came after the Warren family had to squash claims that the doll had disappeared. I can see why that came up. I'll talk about that in a minute. Ben, there's been an update since that story was published. Anna Young in the New York Post published last week that the Annabelle doll was not in the room when Dan Rivera's body was found. And the results of the autopsy are yet to be published at the time that we're recording this. So there's still no confirmation of Rivera's cause of death, though the police reports from the scene state the cause of death as natural causes, and the police are not treating the event as suspicious. So it does raise a few questions, doesn't it? Where the doll was when Rivera died, or where it is now, that seems unclear. I was searching around, but I couldn't find. So I guess this is what may have added to rumours that the doll has disappeared. I'm not saying it has.
No. I'd read that it was in the back of the van.
Okay.
And I think sort of the challenge with this death is to be obviously respectful of what had happened.
Yeah.
Like I think unfortunately, there's many things that 54-year-olds can pass away with, and we don't want to suggest that it was anything paranormal, but it will certainly add to the LORE law of the doll.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, it's such a sad story, but the whole thing just adds to the controversy and the enigma of Annabelle the doll, doesn't it? Whichever way you look at it. So the fact that it happened during a commercial tour brought my mind back to the Conjuring Universe as a business. So let's take a look at that. It's incredible. To give some context, if we start with the movie side of The Conjuring, as of 2021, so as of a few years ago, the films in the Conjuring universe have grossed over $500 million. It's incredible. And that doesn't include merchandising, other revenues, these kind of tours, exhibits, all that stuff.
The ancillaries.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the house that inspired it all. Now, I'm not going to go into a wealth of detail as it's covered everywhere online. Just Google the Conjuring House history and you'll get more detail, or I guess watch the movie, although there are exaggerations, of course. But by way of a summary, the house became notorious because when the Perron family lived there in the 1970s, they claimed they were plagued by paranormal activity. Ed and Lorraine Warren became involved in the case, and that inspired the book written by the Perrons titled House of Darkness, House of Light, which goes into more detail about their experiences of living in the house. That led to the movie The Conjuring, incredible, which made $40 million in its first weekend. The film's budget was $20 million, so it was made for 20 and it took double that in the first weekend. And obviously led to this $500 million franchise. Paranormal investigators Corey and Jennifer Heinsohn bought the house in 2019, a few years before the film was made. They bought it for $439,000. I think it's a house and a farm, basically.
Yeah.
So they were the first to turn it into a business, hosting events, renting rooms to ghost hunters. Only 3 years after purchasing the house, Heinsohn sold the property, citing Corey's health and the stresses of running the business. The house was bought by Jacqueline Nunez in 2022 for $1.5 million. So the Heinsohn's making over 3 times what they paid for it within the space of 3 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? Now, there's been some controversy about Jacqueline Nunez as an owner, especially among some paranormal investigators, initially related to the price to visit there and the restrictions that Jacqueline Nunez was putting on footage shot at the house and its use on social media. In terms of price, if you were a regular punter, it was $25 for a 1-hour tour. Doesn't sound too bad. I guess there's some merch that you probably need to buy at the end of that. If you want to do if you did want to do an overnight investigation, the cost went up dramatically. For an overnight stay at the weekend with up to 8 people, the cost was $1,280.
Wow, that's toppy.
But I believe there were also additional charges if you intended to use the footage you film or record there on different social media channels or podcasts. So if we'd gone there, with our crew, we'd have paid the $1,280. And then I think you have to negotiate charges for using whatever you record there. Obviously, that irritated some paranormal YouTubers and resulted in some harsh exchange of words and colourful language between them and the new owner. The other thing that annoyed paranormal YouTubers is that Jacqueline Nunez and her team insisted on approving the content before allowing it to be posted.
Yeah, that's quite a big deal. We both come from a television background, and quite often you would not give a contributor the right to sign off on the show, not because you want to misrepresent anything editorially, but it prevents you from being able to give what you believe as an accurate description of what it is that you're doing. Somebody who hasn't been through the edit process and the production process may not understand the structure of the story that you're telling. Now, that sounds sort of like, okay, but what if you're lying about them? It really isn't about lying to people. It's about being able to be as honest as you can. And I think with those paranormal YouTubers, there's a lot of people who wish to be as honest as they possibly can. Yeah. And to insist on sign off on it, I think there's something doesn't smell right there. I can understand if people were going there and making up stuff. So you could just say, you know, we reserve the right to bring legal action against you if you start leaving pots of blood around or something like that.
Yeah.
But I can't understand why you would say give sign off on something, because if they've caught something on camera or on audio, then that's all good, right? That's what you would want them to do.
Well, also I was thinking, you know, we know it. If we, let's say, I mean, I know it's nowhere near the scale of this, but let's say when we went to Shepton Mallet, if we'd have gone there and under the guise that people had to check what we were putting out before they would allow it to go out, well, that's quite a risk in even going there, isn't it? The travel, the accommodation, you know, if you paid to go, especially, you know, if you're paying $1,280 to spend the night there and additional costs to get the content, and then at the end of it, they go, no, you can't use it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, to move, you know, to move like 5 people across the country, stay overnight, even before you've paid the costs, it's nearly at £1,000. And for online and sort of self-produced media, £2,000-3,000 is too much to lose. It's a lot to put out, a lot of your own money, and to lose that money, it puts your entire project at jeopardy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when Jacqueline Nunez bought the property, she also inherited the staff that had worked there. And according to US Ghost Adventures blog, relationships with staff at first seemed to run smoothly, but an uglier truth bubbled to the surface when several members of the Conjuring House team suddenly resigned. Citing long-standing issues with pay and on-site duties, 7 staff members added their name to the resignation letter. So they included the previous owners, Corey and Jen Heinzen, who were still involved in the project, even though they didn't own it. Satori Hawes, Cody Desbanes, Reed Bottega. Everybody's got great names on this list. Steve Mills and Erin Bush. The news became public in late June when Satori Hawes officially announced to 143,000 Instagram followers that she, her fiancé Cody, and 5 others had cut ties with the Conjuring House for good. Several days later, on July the 10th, 2024, Jacqueline Nunez unleashed an angry post in which she pointed fingers at the former staff for bringing down her business, being verbally abusive towards one another, and even faking their, quote, otherworldly gifts, particularly Cody and Satori, who have been the centre of many controversies regarding whether their mediumship is real or not. So these were staff who've got followers. They say they've got, you know, paranormal powers or mediumship powers. When asked about the Facebook post, Satori and others claim Nunez was not initially so hostile towards them. She initially begged them to come back to the house and resume their employment. But when that didn't work, Nunez resorted to legal threats, claiming some of the staff had intentionally harmed the house and stole money from the business. But the former employees tell a different story. They claim they did not wish to leave the Conjuring House in a ball of fire, but rather quietly and quickly without burning bridges with Nunez. They also alleged that Nunes began to self-sabotage her business by adopting a few bad habits, like failing to show up for booked stays. I think because she does some mediumship as well, if you booked an overnight stay, you get her thrown in and she does something. She was required to attend these experiences, which could cost over £1,000, and often attracted long-distance visitors. When she wouldn't attend, the staff had to cancel them. Consequently, the staff could not process customer requests, leading to frustration and hostility from customers. To make matters worse, Nunes would go silent for weeks on end, leaving staff to wonder where she was and how to keep the business going without her there. There was also an issue of the home falling into disrepair. Staff complained of a broken heating system and a snowplow that didn't work. Ice and snow accumulated, making the estate dangerous and unsightly for visitors. None of these concerns were addressed. Despite this, many staffers admitted to staying longer than they wanted to out of love for the house, its history, its spirits, and its significance to the larger paranormal community. However, missing paychecks and evasive responses from Nunes when asked about pay and other issues around the estate ultimately compelled the team to submit their 2 weeks' notice. It was around this time that the staff reported feeling worried about Nunes' mental health. When asked about paychecks, Nunes would often say that the conjuring spirits told her not to pay the staff. These ghostly advisors, including John Arnold, a relative of the family who built the original estate. Nunes believed people were trying to steal her money. She also pointed to an incident at the Conjuring barn as a reason to stop paying the staff, particularly Cody and Satori, who had contributed money towards the barn and were employed at the time of its ruin. There's more to this, I'm going to get back, but it's the flow of money through all of this, right? Mm-hmm. That's what struck me in reading this and researching this story, because you've now got Cody and Satori are investing in the Conjuring House themselves. Doesn't feel like there were particularly great contracts or anything in place. One of the major points of contention in this story was the barn at the Conjuring estate. Jacqueline Nunes believes that the damage sustained to the barn was intentional and a proof point that Cody, Satori and others did not respect the estate and wanted to literally and figuratively let it go up in flames. At the time of the incident, the barn was being refurbished to open as a museum of ghostly artefacts. Cody and Satori jumped on the opportunity and contributed their own money to the project, understanding they would be repaid once the museum opened to the public. Unfortunately, rags soaked with combustible fluids were disposed of improperly, and the barn went up in a chemical fire late one night.
Why were there rags with combustible fluid on?
I don't know. I think it just, some kind of cowboy thing.
Yeah.
Because it's in the piece, it says the fire was ruled an accident, and Nunes initially said that she'd still repay Satori for the sunk costs. Nunes ultimately decided against it. Plus, by this point, Nunes is convinced that Satori is faking her gifts, and why should she pay a woman who lies about speaking to dead people? Cody and Satori are a controversial couple in the spirit world, the blog says, with many believing the duo faked their abilities to interact with the dead to grow their fame. Satori's situation is further complicated by her being the daughter of TAP's co-founder, Jason Hawes, a well-known figure in the ghost hunting world. Hawes starred and co-produced the popular sci-fi show Ghost Hunters. Given her family background, it's unsurprising that Satori would pursue a similar career, regardless of her actual mediumship abilities. Many people believe that Satori's tactics for speaking with the dead are staged and nothing more than camera tricks and quirky tools. Cody, a paranormal investigator himself, is often accused of enabling this behaviour and joining in when it seems lucrative for the couple. So more money being talked about in this blog. For years, Jacqueline Nunes defended Satori and Cody's abilities, even threatening legal action against podcasters and YouTubers who claimed they were fraudsters. But Nunes has changed her tune. In her Facebook rant, she wrote that she is suspicious that some staff were fraudulent in their investigative methods. In a text to Satori, she also echoed the same sentiment. So, yeah, that was from the US Ghost Adventures blog. So more money, more intrigue. Well, Jacqueline Nunes also had other issues with other staff. at the Conjuring House. This is a piece from Mail Online from the 3rd of August last year under the headline, Owner of the Conjuring House fires employee on the advice of an 18th century ghost.
I'd read some of this.
Her texts have baffled workers now fighting for justice after these spirit accusations. So one of the original employees of the haunted estate that inspired the Conjuring movies has been fired after the owner said a ghost accused him of stealing money. Brian Danzaro began working at the Burrville farmhouse, also known as the Old Arnold Estate, in 2021 and was the last of the original staff at the property. Danzaro was let go after Nunez told him that the spirit of a former owner, John Arnold, informed her that he'd stolen £3,000 in cash. Very specific.
Yeah, that is a very specific number. Like the trouble with all of this is that what we've actually got in essence is like there's a non-provable folkloric story around a doll and a house that has then created a media empire and brought value on this property. And then because people can see that there's money there, but also because it's quite a it's something that you have to, there's a certain type of people want to use it and therefore exploit it. It causes all of this problem because it's not like you're selling chocolate bars, you're selling ideas. And then when those people come and sort of get involved, you can use those ideas to screw people over and try and keep all the wealth for yourself. It's a very, very unusual and unhealthy situation.
Yeah, because apart from the Rivera bit at the top, every other story in this piece that I'm doing today has some reference to money.
Yeah.
And that's not because I've chosen it. They're just the stories.
Yeah.
They're all connected with money.
And when we started this podcast 5 years ago, we always said, like, one of the obvious ways to decide whether people are, it doesn't always work, but whether people are lying or not, or whether there is something nefarious going on, is to follow the money. If there is no money to be made and there is no reputation to be built, why would people tell a story? And that happens, with alien abduction stories where people wish to remain anonymous and things like that. But it also happens in stories where people don't wish to remain anonymous. So there are people who have become very wealthy through their paranormal experiences. And one does worry about whether they were just excellent storytellers who decided to launch a fiction franchise in a non-conventional way.
Yeah. Well, this, I agree. And I guess we're not saying that if somebody has written a book or is making money out of something, that means it's...
Oh, no.
It's an orange flag just to investigate, that there are motives that could be there. But this former employee claims that Nunez said, John Arnold told me you've been stealing money out of the cash box for the past 2 months. The voices in her head, including that of John Arnold, told her I was psychically attacking her along with the previous staff, and that the voices, including John Arnold, also told her I stole money from her. But here's the rub at the end of that sentence. He wrote this on his GoFundMe page. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Danzare has since permanently denied all theft allegations and instead accuses Nunez of owing him £9,000 in back pay, which I guess he's trying to redeem with his GoFundMe page. The disgruntled employee also said that when he asked for his last 5 weeks of pay, the owner refused and added that Nunez told him that Arnold, the ghost, had instructed her not to give him any more money. As a result, he's filed a complaint seeking unpaid wages at the RI Department of Labour and Training. Despite multiple accusations of not paying Danzaro what he is owed, Nunez, a self-described medium, continues to say that the spirits of the most famous haunted and active location in the world told her he had been stealing. It doesn't matter whether you believe in the paranormal or not. I and every person is entitled to experiences that bring understanding and meaning to our lives, including being informed or warned about wicked actors and actions, she said in a statement. As far as Brian goes, my experience with him devolved quickly, culminating in his at-will employment termination. I'll tell you what, Ben, if that goes to court, I'd love to have a front row seat for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, I don't have to pay him because a ghost told me I didn't need to and he was stealing from me.
Yeah, I don't know how a judge would feel about this. But what is your feeling about this? Is it just because people have become, like, is this just a case of people arguing about money because there is money floating around and they all want a bit of it? Or do you think that there is something perhaps paranormal about this that is attracting, for want of a better word, bad sentiment? Are there spirits messing with people in this environment?
I'll definitely come on to that in more detail a bit later, but initially you kind of go, it's just the money, it's just that human nature of greed. I was struck with, and I'm sure it wasn't all, wine and roses, but the family who owned the house before the films became majorly famous, the book was out, it seemed to be run in a more mums and pups way. Do you know what I mean? They were kind of, they seemed to respect the house. People were coming. You could stay overnight. There wasn't these huge fees as far as I can say. All this, you can't do the footage. And whether it's just one person who comes along and has invested a lot of money, so has to get it back, that suddenly ups the ante, whether it's something about her. But I wonder... So my first thought is, no, it's just human nature and greed. But you do wonder whether there is some kind of other power at play here, that in trying to milk the most, let's put it this way, if you're a believer, you might say, in some ways, you are disrespecting the spirits by the way you're handling things, so you're going to get punished.
Yes.
And it seems all about money to you, so I'm going to make the money turn into something horrible, difficult, losing you money, lawsuits, all that stuff.
Yes. Well, I mean, if all this goes back to a dead girl's spirit inhabiting a doll, all of this is actually in quite bad taste.
Yeah. And the Conjuring House itself, because I think there was an exorcism there as well, wasn't there, at the Conjuring House?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember the story. Yeah, so it does seem connected to money rather than the paranormal, but I don't know. And it's not the end of the story. The house has now been closed to the public for a number of months and looks set to stay that way. I found this from local journalist Paul Edward Parker, who writes for the Providence Journal. 6 months after the town stripped the Conjuring House of its licence to operate as a business, all is quiet at the paranormal visitors attraction. The guest parking area was empty behind a locked gate Tuesday, May, I think that's 2025, and nobody could be seen on the property when Providence Journal reporter visited that afternoon. The only sign of possible occupants was an exterior light that was lit on the corner of the centuries-old farmhouse that inspired the Conjuring movie. Although 3 separate articles, this movie seems to have been released on either 2011, 2012 or 2013. The Conjuring and the Universe and almost a dozen films since. Police Chief Stephen J. Lynch told the Journal that local police have seen no sign of activity at the house, nor had contact with its owner, Jacqueline Nunes. Neighbours who live across the street from the house and who declined to give their names said the property has been quiet lately. Owner Nunes, in a text on Wednesday, May 21st, told the Providence Journal that she's not been to the house because she has been threatened to stay away from Rhode Island. It is not abandoned, she said. A vacant house is not an abandoned house. So, closed down. So you would think that would be the end of this kind of connection with money and out-of-pocket things, but it's not. Because the closure of the Conjuring House has not just left the owner and staff out of pocket, but also many people who had booked to visit the attraction.
Oh, they didn't get a refund.
Yeah. Sarah Gonelli worse than that actually. Sarah Gonelli reported on this in January this year on Target 12, which is a local news show for WPR1, which I assume is a radio station. I got it off there. I like WPR1.
I know. And I
Or is
like
it
the call
WP?
sign.
It could be WPRI though. WPRI or WPR1? One of the two. Great though, right?
Absolutely.
You want Tommy Vance's voice, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You're listening to WPRI.
But it'd be WPRI out of, Cincinnati or wherever it is.
Yeah, Rhode Island.
You just don't get that in the UK. You get 97.2. This is Radio Oxford. Yeah.
Well, the headline of the piece was "Totally Scammed. Visitors denied refunds at the Conjuring House." Wait till you hear this amount. Samuel Stroniger and Linus Backman travelled more than 3,000 miles from Sweden for an overnight booking at the Conjuring. The men said they paid $10,000 for the trip, were excited to visit the farmhouse made famous by the horror film The Conjuring, which has since become a draw for people seeking paranormal experiences. But their excitement turned to dismay when they were turned away at the property's gate and told the attraction had been closed. So they weren't even told that they weren't going. They booked their tickets and they travelled from Sweden, spent $10,000. I'm assuming that's for the whole trip rather than just the tickets. But still, they could have gone somewhere really nice for $10,000, couldn't they? We were super excited for the trip, and my viewers and my followers, everyone knows that we were going to the Conjuring House, said Stroniger, who is a social media influencer. When we came to the house and they said we couldn't enter the house, it was like, this has to be a dream. The Swedes were hardly alone. Target 12 interviewed nearly 10 people over the past 2 months who said the Conjuring House's owners never told them about the closure, despite having successfully booked visits. I believe some of these had booked visits after it had closed as well, is my understanding. Now many are scrambling for refunds after losing hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars for nothing. It just broke my heart because I knew it was something he really wanted, said Crystal Bass, a Warwick resident who had booked a tour of the house for her son's birthday. David Phillips, who travelled from Maine for his daughter's birthday, was likewise turned away. He said they made the best out of the unfortunate situation for going out for dinner in a pub instead. You can't go wrong. But he expressed frustration with the way everything was handled. Number one, the business did not take ownership of the problem, he said. And number two, they tried to push us off on someone else to get our money back. Property owner Jacqueline Nunes told Target 12 last month that she was determined to keep the business open through December despite losing her licence, arguing that people had already booked tours. They are going to have to come and shut me down, she said, which was what police did as soon as she said it. Officers responded to the property in December and shut it down after visitors kept showing up. Nunes and a general manager were cited for operating without a licence. Asked about refunds, Nunes said she is not the problem and that she isn't able to give money back to customers because her third-party booking site, Fair Harbour, had deleted her account and stolen her money. I've experienced grand theft of my business through Fair Harbour Booking, says Nunes. They deleted my account in November so that I would not have access to my data anymore. Fair Harbour's legal counsel, Wendy McCord, disputed Nunes' claims, explaining the third-party booking site provides a platform for businesses to manage reservations and process payments. But she said they don't hold any funds, and customers' payments are passed through to the client, so passed through to Nunes herself. In this case, all funds from customer bookings were transferred directly to Miss Nunes' designated accounts, McCord said. When an account is closed, she added, businesses can no longer accept new reservations, although customers can access their dashboards for a period of time to review bookings and contact customers and cancel reservations. Feeling in a state of limbo, most of the people interviewed by Target 12 said they had received their money back by disputing the charges with their credit card company. So I guess the credit card company will come over after Nunes or whatever. But that was an option for Stroniger and Backman, who paid their $10,000 as they paid with a debit card. Just feels like we got totally scammed, Backman said. basically it feels like the owner is not taking responsibility for their actions at all. Money, 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 money. More money, more problems, by the sounds of it.
It is interesting that there is so much money flowing around this, because a lot of we've done it before. We've paid to go to places like 30 East Drive, and by and large, they're actually incredibly cheap. I mean, I think when we went to 30 East Drive, paid like £49, I think. It might have even been less. It was a very good value, and nobody checks your material. There was honestly, it was a very, very pleasant and good experience, and also nobody was trying to. I think this is common with most of the attractions. They like to sort of tell you the stories, but no one is sort of going, yes, it's definitely haunted. Here's a thing. Like, I've had very good experiences with everywhere that we've paid to go in the UK.
Yeah.
This feels like it feels like, because of the film franchise and everything, it has attracted a lot of
attention. Well, that's the point I was kind of making, and maybe I've got an idealised view, because what do I know? I've never been to it pre Nunez owning it, or pre the movie coming out, or post. But that kind of experience you're talking about with 30 East Drive feels like how it was before the movie became so huge under the previous owners. And, they cashed in. They got 3 times what they paid for the property within the space of 3 years because of that movie. And it feels like it changed after that. Whether that is people wanting to get their investment back, seeing dollar signs in their eyes, or some kind of hauntedness to the money itself, almost in a disrespectful way, like you were saying earlier. I don't know.
It's interesting. When I was, I did have a period of time working for Warner Brothers, and the prop from the film, they always put props in our reception area, and the prop from the film came in. Obviously, it doesn't look anything like the original Raggedy Ann doll. It looks completely different. But even the prop was worth quite a lot of money. Of course, film props like that are worth a lot of money. But everything about Annabelle the doll is money orientated. But what this makes me think of is when there is a value in an object, that quite often that there are curses associated. Not quite often. That is when curses appear to be associated with it. Diamonds, mummies, cars. And
in the Conjuring House, the house itself and the location as well. Yeah.
Yes. So I wonder whether there is a paranormal aspect, like we just said, of the money attracts spirits to feed off feelings, or whether it is simply human nature to just become greedy about the whole thing.
Which is kind of, I wrote this sentence when I was just thinking about concluding. So I wrote, the money itself seems to generate its own kind of curse, perhaps more to do with human weakness rather than powerful spirits, but who knows? I
think that does sum it up well. And it does mean, like, our original premise of challenging beliefs. Like, so where I go to with this is for example, Travis Walton. I happen to absolutely believe what happened to Travis happened to Travis.
So this was when he got claims he was abducted by aliens. Oh no, not the probe. All that stuff. It's almost the birth of that stuff. Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky.
Was
yeah,
the book and the movie, wasn't it?
1993, I think. Yeah. Yes, actually, a really very good movie.
Yeah, it's a good film.
And then that was dramatised. Obviously, it was dramatised. That was slightly exaggerated.
Not the probe.
Yeah, it wasn't a documentary as such. It was based on his experiences and then his books and such. So I don't think he's become tremendously wealthy off it, but he probably doesn't need to worry about money at the moment. But I don't think he. As far as I can tell, there is truth to what he says. Whereas when you look at Amityville horror, which is kind of similar to the Conjuring franchise. Everything about that seems to be fake. Like even the photographs, that famous photograph where there's the child in the image. There's there's a photograph taken in the house. There's a child peeking round. When you really look into it, that appears to be the photographer's son,
right,
who got into frame and was conveniently forgotten that he was at the location. There's many, many things that don't add up to that. But because there was so much money in the film franchise and the book, people don't want to admit it. Although I think it's probably well known now. But yeah, it's curious. I hope this is an anomaly, because it does mean that having an open mind to the paranormal is more difficult when things like this happen. But none of this detracts from the really unfortunate and sad death of somebody who was involved and involved legitimately and honestly with it.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of ties into it in a way, because I don't know. I'm sure there must be examples of, I don't know, a natural history professor touring artifacts from ancient Greece around who may have passed away on that.
Correct, yes.
Nobody's going to say, oh, it was because he was carrying, ancient Egyptian or Greek artifacts around. But it's just that association with Annabelle, isn't it? I don't know. There's something about it, though. It would be good. It would be interesting when we do actually find out what the cause of death was. Not that I want to dwell on it in a macabre way, but there's something about it. Something about the power of the brand, the power of the money that builds stuff up. Because obviously, I think it would be sad for Dan Rivera and his family if people remember, oh, he's that guy who died who was with the Annabelle doll, rather than probably for the work he's done, or that lovely description from his family about, what a loving friend and partner, and, yeah, it would be a shame if Dan Rivera got lost in the story to Annabelle the doll, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, a hell of a lot of money out of it. I mean, it really struck me, out of a movie that initially cost $20 million to make £1 billion, £500 million business. Well, that was in 2021. There's probably been about 3 or 4 other movies since then, so I'm sure it's a lot bigger. Yeah. Yes, well, I don't know. I don't know where I stand on it. I do think it's probably more about greed than the paranormal, but it does make you wonder whether, if there are bad actors out there in terms of spirits, the greed and the money is right up, quote unquote, a demon's wheelhouse, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. Well, next week, I am going to be bringing up something about money, but a really peculiar story that has much less money attached to it. And we have to question its truth or not, but the story itself is absolutely mind-blowing, and I'll let you make up your own mind. I've spent the whole week getting my head around the tale, and it's quite crazy. And in the meantime, we'll go and...
Yeah, I was going to say, in an act of almost hypocrisy, if you do want to support us on...
Yes, I know, I was just thinking that, yeah. Talking of money,
if you want to support us, help make the podcast, get episodes early, ad-free, access to our Discord server and our exclusive Patreon episode, Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop, go to patreon.com/TQM pod. I promise we won't let the money go to our heads. It goes to buying new SD cards, to be honest, so I don't think we're going to be upsetting any spirits. If you want to get some Quantum Mechanics merch, links will be in the show notes. Go check that out as well.
And also, our fantastic administrator on our Discord has made a fun bingo game.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw that. That was really cool.
You could go and play Steph's Quantum Mechanics bingo in our Discord server.
I definitely had a few because I had a look at it. I think there was Peter mispronounces some words. I think you definitely, that's a guaranteed every week.
That's right. Story Dog interrupts.
Yeah, we've had that as well. We're doing well. Good. All right. Well, look, we will hope you have a good week, and we will see you next week, hopefully on the Quantum Mechanics.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?